Back again. I'm just in the process of doing package drawings. So, as you can see, nice big package drawing here. Um, for those of you that do product design at university, you probably wouldn't have come across this. Um, but I suppose you might do actually, because you might have to do interior components to a particular product. But for those of you that know about these things, this is known in the car industry as a package drawing. And I'm just doing mine for my book, to which will hopefully, in a way, I aim to show and teach in the book, the process that goes into designing cars, but applied to products at the same time. And I aiming to cram about 4 years and 5 years 4 years teaching. No, sorry, 5 years work and then 4 years worth of education all into a book. So the book's going to go from first idea, sketch, brief, right through to finished product, model, whatever. But it's also going to go on about techniques and drawing and whatnot. So basically, my education plus 4 or 5 years experience. Anyway, so if you're in university and you're doing transport or whatever, you'll come across this where you'll have to produce a package drawing, and that package drawing will be critiqued and analysed by your tutors. And normally, the norm is that you'll do this before you're allowed to make a actual model. So that you can take a load of sketches, put it down, you can give it a set of dimensions, or you can say, okay, my proposed idea is going to be 1.2 metres tall by, in this case, nearly 5 metres long. It's going to be a sports car, blah, blah, blah. Then your lecturers will then say, okay, yeah, now you can go down to the model workshop and you can start to make what's called your book in the car design world, which is basically a wooden chassis. Stick a load of styrofoam on it, and then you put clay on top of your styrofoam model, to then do quarter scale clay or full size or whatever. So the purpose of these package drawings is so that you can then print them out to scale and then stick it onto a piece of wood, cut it out, and use it as profiles or just a general guide to make your clay models from, blah blah blah. Product design don't really do this because they don't work in the same way, although it's the same sort of discipline. It's a bit weird. By day I'm a product designer, so we don't do this at work, but for a car designer you would do this. Anyway, and so, and the point of these package drawings as well, because there's so much ergonomics that goes into a car, you need to be able to get a certain percentile male in there, i.e. a mannequin of a male and a female. At the minute I've only got a male in here, but you would have a female, and you usually do 2 different colours. So if I just go to another file, you do get, although she might be absolutely tiny actually. Where's she gone? Oh, there she is. You get female as well, which is a 2.5 percentile, and then the male's a 97.5 percentile. Anything above or below that range is classed as either giant or really, really small, for lack of a better word. So between the 2.5 percentile and 97.5 percentile is the average human being size. And if you want to look it up, this is all ergonomics and it's all called anthropometric data. So you can get the average size, and the sizes per percentile differ in different countries. So, like, I think the biggest person used to be in Holland, or the biggest range was in Holland or something. And these mannequins I've got here as a German mannequin for the male. So, if that makes any sense. If Chinese or Far East are generally quite small compared to Europeans, so the percentiles are slightly different. But the general gist of this is you get your mannequins and you'd go onto a system at your university or within work, and you'd find out the exact dimensions of the width and breadth of each limb, and you'd then scale your mannequins accordingly. So, say if that was a 6 foot person in there, you'd have to make sure you got feet size, leg size, back, torso, and head, and then same as the arms. And then once they're in the right scale, you would then just position the limbs and so forth. Like these are all done with a shape layer, and basically that you can move them individually. So I could move the pivot down to his wrist and rotate his wrist. Just so you when you've got to do your package drawings, not only do you have to do the actual package of the actual car, you'll have to do things like the boot lid opening. How far does that come up here? And then you'd have a mannequin standing here, reaching in or reaching out, leaning over the car. And then the door openings will be separate as well. So, but also on your package drawings, when you're doing automotive stuff, you'll have to do something what's called sight lines, which is what are the limits of the user's sight based on blind spots within the car. So if this triangle, that's the lowest point on the bonnet, and going from the user's eyes. So at the minute he hasn't got an uninterrupted view. These are the shoulders of the car, but the actual bonnet in the centre of the car, his view isn't interrupted by anything there. So that goes quite far. The only thing that interrupts his view is this like Targa roof style roof support roll cage sort of thing, because this is a performance car concept anyway. So this line can keep going up and up and up and up and up, and eventually it will stop somewhere about there. Oh, Photoshop's still going. Right, okay. And because I use shape layers with the pen tool, I can just fill that with, say, colour. But I'll tone that down a bit. So when you present your package drawings to your lecturers in uni or whatever it be, I've never done this within industry. I've only ever done this as a student, so it may differ nowadays. I don't know. I graduated 2009, so anyway. So that will show in the side profile the view that the mannequin has outside of the front of the car. It doesn't necessarily show what he can see through the side window, but that should be, in theory, depending on, should be fine, but it's based on your turning your head anyway. So you'll do one of these for the female as well. So you'll have a smaller mannequin in here on top of the larger mannequin with another triangle to show where the female can see. So for example, I don't know how the actual mannequin is, but I'll show you anyway. So she'll have ideally in a real, not ideally, she'll probably be lower sat in the car. So then eyesight will be starting at a lower position. Then that means at this angle, she may not be able to reach, but she may not be able to see above the point, which is, oh no, that's the door window. Anyway, the actual highest point of the bodywork is that orange line there, because that's the interior, and then it makes more sense when you see the actual CAD model. Sorry, my tool still on Zoom. But as you can see here, straighten that back out again. She can look up quite a lot more. So this line's going to be something silly like this. But in reality, you're not going to see that much because your peripheral vision stops at a certain point. So to see that far into the sky, she'll have to tilt the head back and actually physically look up. But you get the idea. So you essentially have two different triangle cones for their eyesight. Not only that, you'll do one for their reach as well. So, and the reach generally is, if I do a circle, and what you're aiming to do for the reach is you basically need to figure out, so if that's the centre of your shoulder where you can physically move your arm from, that distance to your hands. So just keep scaling this and position it until it's right. The annoying thing is, for some bizarre reason, Photoshop doesn't scale from the centre point. Although it says it does, it doesn't, because if you watch, the centre point moves, which is incredibly irritating, even though there it says centre point. So in an ideal world, you'd just be able to scale from the centre point and the centre point won't move, but for some reason Photoshop doesn't do that. So in theory, you'd be able to turn your arm all that way, but obviously you've got interior trim and roof and whatnot. So in this particular case, the reach of this, I'm just going to mask this out, I'm not going to do it properly, but you puff it out properly, but just for the sake of showing you now real quickly. Your reach is, you're not going to be able to reach any further than the actual roof because the roof's in the way. So I'll just get rid of all that. And then you're not going to be able to reach past the seat because the seat's in the way. So his reach within the cabin is going to be something along those sort of lines. That's where you can physically reach. Now this is an extreme case because this is a really tight ergonomics. It's like properly tight. This is like the edge of my dashboard. My dashboard's kind of like a wing shape, so it tapers towards the middle. So there's a tiny area. It will make more sense in 3D. There's a tiny area for the actual pedals, and that's another thing as well. When you're doing your mannequins and all that stuff, normally you'd, like I said earlier, you'd do your model after you've done your package drawing. But I'm not at uni anymore, so I don't have to answer to these annoying lecturers. So I ended up going from, once designing the actual car, I just like physically drawing it and rendering it. I then went into the CAD and modelled it up in CAD. But I had a CAD mannequin, so a 3D wire mannequin, which is how I designed this. I physically put the 3D mannequin in its seated position and then modelled around him. So effectively cutting out all this, because then I knew where my dash could go, where my seat could go, where the roof could go. And I just did it all in the 3D. But if you're at university, you'd be expected to do it this way first. You do your line drawing, packaging, so that you understand the process. So things like foot pedals, your mannequin, male and female, will always pivot and start from the foot pedals, not the seat, because in reality your car seat moves backwards and forwards and up and down. So the thing that never moves in a traditional car, as in a production car that you see on the road today, the thing that never moves but you have to use is the foot pedals. So your mannequins always start from the foot in the same position, male and female. And then your seats and your steering wheel can move in relation to the pedals. So when you're doing your package drawings and you get your actual female, so if I just, for argument's sake, copy this male and just think of it as a female. Now I'm just going to scale it down just to give you an idea as to the difference in size. I'm obviously not measuring this, but you'll have to measure this if you're doing it for university or whatever. So the foot position is always the same because the pedals are always the same. But things where it will change is like her bum will sit on the seat slightly differently because of her legs won't have to bend the same way in this particular case because of this design. So you put your feet and you'd rotate the foot so but for teaching you and showing you that'll be alright. So then you get an idea as to where she sits in relation to what he does. And things that most modern cars do now, the headrest will move and the seat will move, blah, blah, blah. But in this particular design, I intend that the foot pedals will move backwards and forwards and the headrest will move, but the seat is the thing that stays the same. And the steering wheel will then move and adjust. This whole dash, in a traditional car, you've got a bulkhead somewhere down here, and then you've got the whole dashboard, and then you sit in a normal position. But as you can see, you're almost practically lying down in this car. But this car is also only 1200 millimeters. So what that is in inches for the Americans, I don't know. You'll have to type into Google and work it out, or put it on a rule or something. So 1200 mil, you think about a kitchen worktop's 900. So a kitchen worktop comes to about here. So this is a properly low car. It doesn't look like it, but it actually is. It's really low. And in this case, like I said, my foot pedals would move and the headrest would move. The whole dash would move and the steering wheel would move. So for this particular thing, my actual female mannequin stays in the part that does not move, i.e. this is the seat that does not move. And her feet would move up and the pedals would come out towards her feet, and then her headrest would adjust and the whole dash would adjust. For this particular design. So bear in mind, no matter what you're designing, the thing that doesn't move, the thing that is always stationary, is the point of where you base your mannequins. Like I say, pedals is the norm, but that might all change in the future. Anyway, other things to consider on your package drawings are things like storage. So this purple area here, I've got as the boot compartment or the trunk if you're American. That will be where I'd have storage for bags, suitcases, whatnot. This blue area down here is the lowest point in the car, so this is where I intend to have the batteries, because this is an electric car. I intend the batteries to be all down there, and because of it seems like there's a lot of space here where I've got nothing, and then there's a lot of space in here and a lot of space in here. But because I'll just show you on the other view. But because of how that is shaped, that line there is the exterior bodywork. So, and the reason why my mannequins on my package drawing look it's like they're sitting really high here, this distance here, is because when it came to physically getting a seat into here and a mannequin sat there, the mannequin's head is, I'll draw it in purple. The mannequin's head is about yay here, because the roof is quite tight up here. Then you've got the main torso of the mannequin, which is somewhere about here. Then you've got your bottom, and then you've got your legs, and then they go down to where the pedals are at the bottom of the car. So to physically get the mannequin in and the seat in, your bottom would be sitting around there, which is why it looks like you're sat really high off the floor. But bear in mind, a normal traditional seating position is you sit down and your legs are fairly horizontal, and then you go down and you sit on a seat, something like that. Oh, come on, Photoshop. So that will explain, because of this curvature of the actual bodywork, as to why you're sat like that. Because that is, it doesn't look like it, and it's really strange, but that is the absolute limit I could put the seat down to, because of the way I designed the exterior, and I didn't want to make a compromise. And because I'm not doing this as a university project, I'll probably get failed on ergonomics, but this is pure fun and personal. So, and also these views look a bit strange because they're in orthographic, they're not in perspective. So proportionally it looks really weird in orthographic compared to when you do it in perspective. And when I modelled it in perspective and orthographic, and kept flipping between the two, because it does look weird when you're doing it in orthographic, but then when you put it into perspective, it just makes sense. It's a weird thing, but for those of you that have modelled anything, you'll know and understand. And then there's other things to consider are things like hard points, which is like, in this case, there's wishbones and suspension mounts and all sorts in there. Plus, on the top view, when you do it, you'll do a wheel, which is, say, yay big. I can actually do it to the actual size of the wheel, but anyway. So then when your wheel's in that position there, it's a bit wide. Just put that colour on that so you can see that clearly. You'll also have to show on your top views the actual turning circle for the wheels, which is another thing. When I modelled it, I had to take in consideration is, can I physically get my wheel in that space to turn, so that when it does turn, it doesn't hit anything. And to show that on your package drawings, you'll end up with something like that. You do them in any colour really. It's just to show contrast between the two. So then you do that one, let's say yay wide, and it just basically shows your max lock in both directions. And because it should be symmetrical, I'll just flip that vertically. Oh, might help if I actually duplicate it first. So it just basically shows how far your wheel can turn within your package that you've designed, and that will have to be shown on any package you show to your university lecturer or whatever. And you do that for whichever wheels turn. And then more often than not, you will also show the top view your suspension points and mounts and wishbones and whatnot, and even transmission. So like in this view, if this was a combustion engine, I'd have to show somewhere where the actual combustion engine is. So if it did have a combustion engine, it'd probably be mid-engined to rear engine, and it'd probably be something like that in reality. And then that whole bottom would have to change. And then you'd have your transmission down here somewhere, and that would go down to a gear linkage and a gearbox. Gearbox would be on the engine somewhere like that. You'd have to show all that. And when you're doing your final year package drawings, you have to go into, it sounds crazy, but you have to go into things like your water tank, your radiator grill, your oil and pump and sumps, and your alternators, and everything you can think of that goes into the car, you'd have to show in your package drawing. So you end up with an awful lot of colour boxes and squares and shapes and God knows what on the actual package drawing. So that's the kind of things you want to consider within your package. But you also need to show where your door openings are. And if I'm going to just try and find that. Where have I put those two shapes? Right, that one. And so I'm just trying to find where. Oh, go away. Appear to have lost my storage space. Yes, turn it off. And what are going to do? Right, okay. So back to where I was. What was I doing? I forgot. What on earth was I doing? Oh, yeah, door openings. Sorry, my mind went blank then. I don't know. Happens from there time to time. Door openings, right. So where is my door neck? Dash cabin space. The way I've done this, I've grouped it all. So all that there is the door mech. And this particular door, you want to show on your package drawings your door openings and mannequins getting in and out of the vehicle as well. So this one, to show you what the door will do, it will go up like so far. So basically the door lifts off its seals and then move the pivot point to here, and then the whole door opens like so. Pretty much like a jet fighter, which is what the whole thing was based on. This whole thing was based on aerospace. So this black line here is the edge of the bodywork. You don't have a lower door opener as normal. You literally climb over this black line here into the seat, and also the dashboard. The dash lifts up like so you can get your legs in, and that is the whole concept behind this unusual door opening. But you'll also want to show that within your package drawings, and rather, because there's a lot of information that's got to go onto these, you will end up doing, say if you've got to present it via PowerPoint or in a PDF, you'll do one sheet where it has just eyesights and arm reach, another sheet that has all your transmission and hard points, another sheet with your door openings and mannequins getting in and out, and then you'll do the same number of sheets for front views and rear views and top views. So, and then say you end up, say, 4 sheets per view, 3 views, in some cases 4 views, depending on whether you do different things for the back and the front. So you can end up with almost 16 different pages just in your package drawings. So there's quite a lot of work to go in there. And also, another thing to touch on is the grid itself. If I remember rightly, I mean, it's been 5 years since I graduated. If I remember rightly, 0 always starts on the centre of a wheel. In this case, I've done the car going left to right, so that wheel happens to be my rear wheel. You could do it over here and go negative, but it's like an X and Y grid system as you get in anything to do with maths. So to the left is negative and down is negative, to the right and up is positive. So it goes 0, negative 200, 400, 600, and I've done this. This actual file is quarter scale, so you can see it's over 1 meter wide. Hang on, let me just move this out of the way. So if I just plot 0, 0, basically what you do, that top left hand corner there, if you just drag that out, you can set your 0, 0 to wherever on the page. So if I pop that down there, you get an idea. 140 millimeters wide this sheet is, by I think it's 600 high, I think. that helps you to create the grid, and the grid I've basically done all the numbers on a group, all the circles, all the vertical lines, and all the horizontal lines. And I've done a 200. I did do. I'll show you. Actually, I did do a line between each one of the. For every 100 mil, I did a line. But the trouble is, it got really heavy to look at. It was really confusing. So I decided to go with 200 mil gap on the actual grid, and then these are all just basically shape layers, and I've just got the pen tool and just done 0.1 straight across 0.2, and then I've just duplicated them and moved them. And with most modern versions of Photoshop now, you can do a line with a pen tool, and then when you move it, it gives you a little reader to how far you've moved it. So when you work out the scale, i.e. quarter scale is 50 mil, is 200 mil, blah blah blah. It gives you an idea of how to set that out and how to do it accurately. And obviously 0 is the ground, and I haven't done it yet, but the X all in the X, and these all should read Y because they're all in the Y direction. But I just haven't got around to doing that yet. So yeah, I think that's most things covered that you need to know as what to do. When you do them, if you are doing them with your Photoshop or whatever, I would recommend using your pen tool, but use it on the, when you use pen tool, use it on the shape rather than path, because by doing that you have all these shape layers, but it means I can select these points and I can move them, and it just updates, they never delete. So if you did it with a path tool, for example, you'd end up with a load of paths in here, but you'd have to restroke the path every time you wanted to do that. And if you want to tweak the tiniest little detail, it means you have to redraw the line. And it's just easy with the shape layers, because you can just edit the shape layers. So I'd recommend using shape layers. I wish I knew that when I was doing my package drawing years ago. And what I've basically done as well here is I've got an if I show you front view, if I just duplicate the whatever view, the rear view, I'm going to duplicate that layer back into my package on the side. So because these are massive files, and I'll show you how big the image file is, image size, 1399 millimeters by 500 millimeters by 300 dpi. So it's pretty big. And if, like when I was at university and I did mine, I didn't know at the time, I did all my views on one sheet, quarter scale. So I had side view, front view, top view, all on the same sheet, just to be able to keep the dimensions all the same. But what I've done here is I've done the side view, and I've grabbed a screenshot from the CAD in orthographic, and I basically scaled it so it's the same height. As you can see there, it's the same height. And I then measured the CAD model to give me this dimension on the side. And then when setting it up, I've just set that dimension in there within Photoshop, which is, if you press Command R, it brings up your rulers at the top of the screen. And then I've done the same for the top view. So the top view, I've got the length from the side profile, copied that out into a new file, and to save time on creating the grid, a nifty little trick, I copied the base layer, the gradient. I'm holding Command as well, in case you don't know. I'm holding Command or Control if you're on PC. Selected the grid, and that would be it. And the relative file, I had a side profile or whatever, and then I literally just right click. I don't want that layer, go away. Duplicate layers, and then I just select new, and then it creates the grid exactly the same. So all I've got to do now is just change the number of where I want the 0 to be. So I'd basically just drag all those, move them to the left, get rid of those, change all these to Y still. But then say if I've only got to have just the one view on this sheet, I'll then just delete the rest of it. Or you can just crop the page. So you could just say, okay, I only need that much of the page. And then that would just crop the whole page then. But I don't want to do that if you're doing it one way. Anyway, but that means you can get all your scales the same and measurements the same in one file, but then copy your grid out to the next view. So it makes your file size a lot easier to manage, because obviously it's a lot of memory being used on such a massive file. And I remember my computer back in the day was struggling to do 4 views on the same sheet, all quarter scale, so you could print them off to scale 1:1. So I've basically just copied them out, so I've got the same grid, same sheet size, and just doing them all separately. And I grabbed a picture of a mannequin offline, and then I just pathed out this mannequin based on this picture off the internet, and then scaled him accordingly. So yeah, that's a brief talk on packaging and ergonomics and stuff that you'd be expected to cover within your packages if you're at university or whatever. Any questions, just drop them in the comments below, and then I hope it helps as more of a reference for what you need to cover, and I'll leave it at that. Cheers.